About a month has passed since Yakuza Kiwami 3 has released. Before the game came out, there was tons and tons of controversy and arguments, especially over on Reddit, about how this game was going to be a flop and how they were making huge missteps in the direction of the series, and now we know that Yakuza Kiwami 4 isn't going to happen based on what they've done with the ending to Kiwami 3. And on YouTube, I noticed that within the first day or so, there were tons and tons of really, really negative reviews and takes on Kiwami 3 as a whole. Now, I hate to say it, but within only a day or so, I doubt that most people who weren't reviewers with codes sent to them would have been able to play through enough of Yakuza Kiwami 3 to say if it was a really, really terrible game or not. I understand that Yakuza franchise fatigue is hitting really hard since they're pumping out about one game per year. But my history with Yakuza has started with 3 on the PS3. I was too young back then to really understand how to play the game, but I ended up watching tons of walkthroughs and playthroughs, especially by Psychedelic Snake, who's now been cancelled. But there was something about that game that just captivated me, and it wasn't until Yakuza 0 that I really, really fell in love with this franchise. Now, with that being said, ever since 2017, I've played at least 1 to 2 games per year. Canonically, I'm up to Yakuza 4, but I've also played every single side game that has come out since then. With that being said, I wanted to do a review that was a little bit more in depth, and here's what I've thought after 1 month of playing Kiwami 3. Now I'm going to get the not very fun controversy parts out of the way. It's kind of like what's happening with Scream 7, if you know anything about that. There's been a lot of boycotts because the studio has made some weird decisions, and especially with that of casting Teruyuki Kagawa, an actor who in 2022 admitted to assaulting 2 women. For Dark Ties, he plays the big bad known as Go Hamazaki, lieutenant of the Tojo clan. For Kiwami, he's been totally changed visually from a large, imposing, dark-skinned man to a slick-haired, lighter-skinned, slim model, which looks very closely to the notorious voice actor. Now, in the past, they've actually recasted people who have had legal problems, and none of those legal problems were as serious as assault. So I don't know what's going on here, and especially with the backlash, it's almost like they've doubled down, and I do think that that's in really, really poor taste. Not only is it pretty vile that they let him stay in the game, but his voice and the tone now of the story has shifted. Because he even looks very different, and his visuals, especially being a Yakuza member, does not look as imposing as he used to when he was just a model based on their imagination. Imagine that. There's also the whole other controversy where Kiwami 3 majorly changes plot elements that do not bode well for future remakes. I'll talk more in depth about Dark Ties, but the actual ending of the game has been changed, and without spoilers, the best I can say is that what was once a seinen series of games has now dipped into shonen territory. And I'm not talking good shonen like Chainsaw Man. This is just very subpar with how they've rewritten some story beats. Dead don't stay dead, interactions are more overly explained, and the bad are either black and white villains or obvious hero bait that's so cut and dry. I first noticed this change when the HD remaster dropped, and they cut scenes that they somehow found inappropriate. Famously, there's a sub-story where Kiryu runs from a trans woman and makes silly comments about it before inevitably helping her and her friends in the usual beatdown. At the time, that was pretty forward-thinking, so I don't really understand why a game that's supposed to be set in late 2007 through 2010 needs to have something like that cut. We don't re-release Scary Movie 1 and cut out dated humor. What's different here? I honestly just can't stand censorship though, so of course I'd complain about this. There are other cuts, like the original 119 sub-stories being cut to 31 in Kiwami 3. Now, to be fair, some of those were very short and cut into multiple parts, but in my opinion, side quests are the best parts of Yakuza. What's worse, Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, which is also on one of those stupid Switch 2 keycards, has slashed content and characters as well. My last major negative comment before we get into my lukewarm defense of Kiwami 3 is that the best way to play Yakuza 3, the remaster for 3 to 5, two of which are hardly talked about or readily playable, have been delisted. PS3 Yakuza isn't expensive physically, it's under 20, but the frame rate is genuinely bad, as is some localization, and, it doesn't help that it's not on other modern consoles. The PS4 Remaster Collection of course shot up in price physically, but its updated resolution, performance, and a physical copy of Yakuza 5, which was only digital outside of Japan for so long, made it worth it. So now, most people only get the watered-down, spoon-fed option of Kiwami 3. I've always loved Yakuza 3. I like the little kids and what the orphanage does to Kiryu's growth. I like the small, cozy vibes of the beach where I battle big tuna, and I enjoy the calmness of Okinawa's city streets. Okinawa kind of reminds me of the familiar, homey feelings of Shenmue's town, where the people become a memory, and the street lights change your whole perspective between night and day. The lighting itself, especially the PS3 oranges and browns we're so in love with in hindsight, has changed to a subdued but also very gorgeous haze of blue. It's darker and reflects more water than sun, though I will say in cutscenes, that blue haze is just totally removed, which I'm confused by. Anyhow, I was worried the color shift would upset me like Persona 3 Reload did, because color is huge to changing tone and visuals and story. But I love what it does for Kiwami 3, just like I love this set of colors in Pirate Yakuza Hawaii. As for the story, it's very small scale, and intimate for a change. So there's some American military base that requires a ton of land in Okinawa, something lending to a safer area that the Minister of Land wants to start buying up in order to make a resort. Of course, to get long-time home and property owners out, they use small-time and later big-time Yakuza to get rough, which ends up connecting to a larger scheme for an arms race. Yakuza 3 has some of the more interesting bad guys, with Mine, lead of Dark Ties, being a fan favorite. While coming from a low birth ranking, he's a genius with money, though his methods in making said money tend to require stabbing other people in the back. He's got a close relationship with Daigo, Tojo leader and trusted ally to Kiryu. Mine and Daigo are like yin and yang, but Mine struggles much more than Daigo to be good. The overarching plot is pretty solid, however the best parts of it, for me, are with Kiryu, Haruka, and the orphanage kids. Sub-stories have always fleshed out the many sides of Kiryu, but the ones with the kids in 3 really let you get to know and care about both him and the children. Specifically in Kiwami, you even get to catch bugs with them, teach them homework, sew for them, and just talk with them about struggles they're going through. Some of them are pretty hardcore, like dealing with racism or just not being able to get the girl to like you that you think should. Little kid stuff that really does happen. I imagined that Kiwami would do even more in way of beefing up subplots for the children, but they went an oddly different route. In OG3, Kiryu recruited women for a host club minigame, a side thing that was perfected in Yakuza 0 with Majima. I have spent way too many hours on these host clubs, and I regret nothing. Yet in Kiwami 3, they've removed this in favor of expanding a random subplot from the OG into a full-on side game about creating a girl biker gang. Battle-wise, this gang becomes Dynasty Warriors levels of powerful against hordes, and there are 72 girls to recruit. There's been a lot of negativity around Kiwami 3, and I've seen a lot of people dislike this biker aspect because they say it takes away from the kids, or they say it's just another aspect of wokeness because the biker story is about young women being empowered, which is so stupid and very trite to argue about at this point. Ladies are allowed to be in stories, get helped by men, and still be strong characters. Anyway, it's all optional, so I see even less to complain about its effect on narrative. The biker gang is fine. So here's something I am bummed about. In Original 3, there was a revelation system that was so fun and spontaneous. As the game went on, you'd pull out your phone to take pictures of crazy accidents people got into. If you got the prompts right, you'll slowly unlock 10 moves that genuinely turn the tide in combat. Not to mention, they're also absolutely hilarious action scenes. In Kiwami, they put an emphasis on your flip phone, letting you add stickers and charm straps that kinda aid in battle, but that's even more reason I don't see why Revelations were cut. Instead, you have a boring tree to unlock moves that simply cost money, something that makes it feel a lot less special, and honestly too easy because you can just sell stuff from briefcases around the city or spam side quests to get really strong very early in the game. Now, I'm not someone who loves or hates a game based on combat, but Kiwami has some highs and lows I'll have to mention. Original 3 had the problem where enemies constantly blocked. They don't anymore, but they low-key feel easier than ever. The tracking is still iffy, like sometimes you're locked on, but Kiryu or Mine seem to keep punching forward instead of low when an enemy hits the ground. I also feel like, in general, heat actions are hard to use now. So many times I saw it flash for 2 seconds then go away, especially with Mine. Plus, heat actions just don't really deal much damage anymore. For Kiryu, it's the same old Dragon of Dojima style, minus grab counters until far into the skill tree, which killed me. But you also get the new style that's solid for crowd control, allowing a kind of random shield and sword combo. I didn't use it too often because I just love the speed of Dragon style. For Mine, he's got a mix of Dragon and the parkour aspects of Judgment. The best crowd control he does is a spinning kick off another enemy, or even better, a sprint to tackle move that low-key did good damage and stopped enemies in their tracks. His gimmick, however, is just okay. You get to the point where you can hold R2 and charge him up by 3 hearts, which makes him more of a brute and hits a lot harder or frenzies without being easily stunned. It comes in most handy with bosses, who, by the way, only have a max health of 2 bars. Gone are the days of 4 to 9. It also helped in the Underground Coliseum, where I could use the tackle move to take down bosses faster and deal more damage that way, by just running away instead of dodging so much. Again, his tree is very small and doesn't have tons to offer, which is kind of how I feel about his whole Dark Ties edition. Let's get into it. I had recently played Yakuza 3, the original, on the PS4 remastered just 2 years ago. So the real reason I wanted Kiwami was the same as why I wanted Zero Director's Cut: additional content. $60 for 17 plus hours just on the main story is pretty good. But $60 if I had just played Dark Ties is not good. I did every side quest, did all rounds of the Coliseum, as well as Survival Hell, an annoying labyrinth I'll explain soon. I finished the story and fully leveled Mine within 10 hours. 10 hours is better than some $70 titles, but Dark Ties is so mid. Probably one of the most subpar Yakuza side games ever, actually. I already talked combat. It's pretty okay, but nothing astounding. Story-wise, Dark Ties attempts to flesh out Mine within 3 chapters, equating to just 2 to 3 hours of real story and cutscenes. It's so short that they hope and pray the side missions distract you from the major laziness modern RGG is up to right now. Dark Ties' plot tries to explain why Mine would do what he does in the end game, showing through his inner monologues and traitorous actions. Sometimes he's just so unlikable and negative that I fail to see why Daigo or the crux of Dark Ties, Kanda of the Nishikiyama subset, even mess with Mine to begin with. Mine is so wishy-washy, even in some subplots where you're supposed to be sympathetic with him. Subplots have 2 kinds in Dark Ties. One being just beating up local troublemakers on the streets, and the other being under the umbrella of this kinda damage control menu. Doing these quests along with adventure stuff like taking the taxi, eating out, and playing minigames adds reputation to Conda, which gives you money for CDs, Game Gear games, abilities, and so on. Reputation ranks also mean bro moments with Conda, which somewhat flesh him out and Mine. It's a new social link type system a la Persona, which Yakuza has been really into with Infinite Wealth and Pirate Yakuza. It's cool, but it doesn't really get you anything in the end. There are around 10 or so real subplots, which feel much more like Kiwami 1 and 2. For example, you accept the mission, stumble onto the scene, watch an interaction, get involved with some dialogue choice, and then end up in an altercation. Standard fare. Sometimes these plots end up making Mine likable, with one about a little boy who wants to stop his grandpa's shop from being vandalized, becoming very soft and heartfelt, even making me root for Mine in the end. Other plots are just fetch quests, where you look on the map for encounters with NPCs who are needing, let's say, tissues, food, or water. There's not much dialogue to them, nor is there any cutscenes. It's pure filler in a way to make money. So, all in all, Dark Ties has lame subplots. The one thing Dark Ties put some effort into, though, was the underground tournaments. I was kind of messing heavy with the purge-like atmosphere of rich people betting on you to die, so it has some sort of edge of interest and explanation for why you can do it at least. The tournament ring is straightforward and short. Basically, you have 3 rounds of one-on-one, or you have 1 round of a more difficult 2 versus 1 fight. There are also sometimes stipulations, like they can use weapons and you can only charge up your heart 1 time. It's pretty typical and very short for how long I think back on the Yakuza 0 tournaments being, where there was about 30 of them and they were really freaking difficult. The actual unique tournament is Survival Hell, made up of 5 stages total with multiple in-between stages where you find health boosts, weapons, etc. All of these little boosts are inside of chests where you have to fight a little group of enemies and a mini-boss. Dynasty Warrior style fights happen, but you only have a limited amount of time to get to the exit and fight a final boss. These maps encourage fast-paced exploration amidst traps like lasers, trapdoors, fire, and annoying encounters. To help you though, you can collect and pay for mercenaries to fight for you, as well as equipping weapons to control crowds, or use items to stop stun, bullet damage, or more. Because you can easily get overwhelmed and killed by enemies in this mode, it sometimes got a little frustrating to me, especially since you lose all your money and progress when you die. I did stick with it for the PlayStation Network trophy, but other than that, it doesn't do much for the game other than exist to pad out time. Are you sensing a theme? With Dark Ties all in all, it's not much, and the final minute of the last cutscene is so tacky due to the huge narrative change the ending of Kiwami 3 takes, that I literally rolled my eyes big time. I guess it's nice that they added something to a new version of 3, but I would have rather seen them put more time into Kiwami 3 to keep subplots in, to make some in-game and cutscene textures look better, and to just not whip out yet another Yakuza game in this oversaturated cycle of a new Yakuza every year or so. The series fatigue is so real, and reviews and sales of Kiwami 3 are genuinely not good, and probably won't be for the next one either. Overall, I think positively about this remake because I just love Yakuza so much. On a tier list of favorite series, Yakuza is probably 2nd or 3rd and has been with me for so many seasons of my life. But am I worried for the franchise? Unfortunately, yes.
言うまでもありませんよ、先生。